Hi everybody, this is Trisha, and I'm back again today with another video for you. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this cute little bunny in a basket project. We're using some art impression stamps. So let's get started. First I'm going to take the basket and I'm going to ink it up with some sepia. As you'll notice when I stamp this down on my watercolor paper, I've left a few spots open on the top and on the bottom. That's just so I can put in some grass and to make sure my leaves look like they're spilling over the side. So I'm going to use some even pressure and stamp that right down on my watercolor paper. So I'll take my brush and I'll pinch off the water, and then I'll just start pulling the color out of the lines. I'm going to be careful to stay within each one of those sections and pull the color to the inside of each section. So like that belly band is going to be really dark underneath, so I tried to pull the color underneath it. And then the same with those slats, I'm just going to pull the color into each one of those sections. And this is going to be really quick. I'm going to come back in and darken those lines up, but I just wanted to get a little start here. So I'm taking my stamp positioner and I'm going to stamp my bunny using the stamp positioner. And I'm going to kind of move it around until I see where I want it. I want to give enough room for my greens and for my flowers, so I don't want to be too close. So I want to make it look like it's stamping, it's sitting right on top of all those flowers. So I stamp my bunny down using I think I used some sepia for this one. You could also use, if you wanted it really, really light, you could use the brownish gray, number 40. That would also work very well on the stamp. So I'm going to be very careful and just pull a little bit of color out. I want my bunny to be white. So I'm just going to pull some shadows in. I want to not make sure I don't go over his face there. I want to leave his face nice and white. But I do want to pull a little bit of color out so it looks like he's got some shadows. So right there between his paws would be really, really dark. And then around his tail and his feet, just going to pull the color right out of those lines. This would be a perfect project if you wanted to do some Easter cards, which is coming up soon. This would be a great project for that. And because he's white, he's very, very easy. Like I said, you just want to show the shadows. Now I'm going to take my vine from the original Foliage Set and I ink it up with some olive green, and then I'm just going to start stamping it in a little bit here and there. I'm going to try to get 4 or 5 impressions before I re-ink it, and I'm just wanting it to spill out over the sides and over the front. I'm going to leave some room because I want to be able to put in my flowers. So I created this mask, and I'm going to place the mask right over my bunny because I want to stamp right over his feet, but I want his feet to stay so that you can see them, so I don't want to stamp over them, which is why I'm using this mask. Now I just grabbed one of my flowers, one of my long stem flowers, and I inked it up with some iris purple and some olive green. And then I'm just going to stamp it a few times here. This is similar to a project that Bonnie Krebs did on the Art Impression site, so you can definitely take a gander over there and see that project. I believe she used a cat in hers, and hers is probably much better, but I thought I would give it a go. So now I'm using some of the long grasses, and there's one that goes to the right and one that goes to the left. I inked them up with my olive green, and I just stamped them in a few times on each side. And then I just inked up the top of that stamp instead of the whole thing and stamped a few more in the front of that basket. So now you notice I haven't taken my mask off. I really want him to stay protected. And I'm just going in with my brush to soften up those lines. I wanted to put a few in and soften them up and take a look at where I was before I didn't want it to be crazy out of control, but I wanted it to be pretty full, so I was doing it in kind of stages. Now I'm just pulling the color out of the grasses, and that's going to be a brush stroke, so you're going to pull it up and out. And then I use just my damp brush to go along the bottoms to give them some grounding. It gives it some dimension as well. When you place things in front like that and then you pull some of that color out front, it gives it a little bit more depth. So now I was deciding where I wanted, and I decided to come back in. Oh, actually, I'm going to do the blooms first. Now I didn't do those. I cleaned off my brush and then came back in, because if you don't and you just go right back in with the green, all your pinks will turn to brown, and I didn't want that. So I just went in and cleaned my brush and then started pulling the color out of those blooms. Now I'm taking the vine again, and I'm just going behind that bunny a little bit and just creating a little bit of height with the foliage. Which is why I kept the mask on too, because I knew I was going to come in and do some more. So now I'm just going in and softening up those lines, softening up those greens a little bit. Now I'm going to take some magenta, and I'm going to take these little flowers from the original flower set, and I'm just going to stamp them a few times along on the tops of those that grass. This is one of my favorite stamps. I love the versatility. You can use it on the ground as wildflowers. You can use it in the tops of these grasses so they look like flowers. You can really do a lot with that stamp. Now I'm just going to soften up and pull that color so it brightens it up a little bit. Gives it a little springy look and creates a nice color along the bottom. I wanted to stamp a little bit more of the vine underneath my little bunny. He looked like he needed a little bit more to stomp on. So I just inked it up again with the olive green and then just softened it out, not using a lot of water here at all. So now I'm going to come in with my sepia, and I'm just going to trace some of those lines just to darken them up, and then I'll pull the color out with my paintbrush, but I just wanted to give them a little bit more oomph. They looked a little washed out and the basket got a little lost, so I just came in and darkened some of those lines, and then I'll just take my brush and pull that color a little bit more into each of those slats, I guess you'd call them. You can do this for your projects. It's nice to darken in some of your areas to make them pop out a little bit more. So now I'm taking my scissors and I'm just removing that mask. And then I'll come in with my paintbrush and I'm just going to bring some of that color closer to him so he doesn't look like he's sitting out there with nothing around him. Now I'll sign and date it. And as I did that, I decided that he needed some sky. So I put a little bit of the manganese blue on my palette, and I'm using my brush with a lot of water. And then I'm just going to tap in some sky behind him. And then I'll use a paper towel to pick some color up, to soften it with some clean water, just to give the sky a little bit more interest. I think it just finishes off your paintings when you do the sky in the background. And that's it. That's our little project for today. I hope you enjoyed. Oh, that's not it. So I put a little bit of that magenta on my palette, and I'm going to put a little bit of pink into his ear and a little bit of pink into his nose. And then just add a little bit to each of these flowers just to brighten them up a little bit. And I think that's going to do it. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all my subscribers, and I've linked a couple more videos in case you're interested. So I hope to see you in the next video, and have a great day.